You canceled the plans. You closed the door. You turned off the noise. And for the first time all week, you finally felt like yourself again. Not relieved because you were avoiding something. Not hiding because the world was too much. Simply returned to yourself in the way that only silence can manage. Most people looking in from the outside would call that loneliness. But what is actually happening in those quiet moments is something far more sophisticated than the word lonely could ever contain. Society has constructed a very specific story about people who prefer their own company. That they're sad. That they're struggling. That somewhere beneath the closed door is a person desperately wishing someone would knock. The cultural assumption is that human beings are supposed to want noise, company, and constant connection, and that anyone who opts out of that must be broken in some quiet way. But neuroscience and psychological research tell a fundamentally different story about what is actually happening inside the brain of someone who genuinely thrives in solitude. The difference begins at the neurological level. Research into introversion and dopamine processing shows that people who prefer solitude are not less social by failure. They are wired differently by design. Studies on nervous system regulation show that introverted individuals have a lower stimulation threshold, meaning they reach mental and emotional saturation faster in high-input environments. Solitude is not withdrawal for these people. It is calibration. It is the nervous system returning to its optimal operating state after being exposed to more input than it was built to sustain comfortably. This process is sometimes described as solitude competence, the developed ability to exist fully and productively within one's own inner world without requiring external validation or stimulation to feel complete. People who possess this ability are not empty inside. They are typically the opposite. Research consistently links comfort with solitude to higher levels of self-awareness, creative output, emotional regulation, and reflective thinking. The inner world of someone who genuinely enjoys being alone tends to be extraordinarily rich, populated with ideas, observations, and internal conversations that most people never develop because they never sit still long enough to discover them. The specific strengths that emerge from this orientation are significant. People who are comfortable alone tend to know themselves with unusual clarity. They understand their own emotional states, triggers, and values without needing a relationship or social mirror to define them. They make decisions from the inside out rather than from the outside in. They are less susceptible to social pressure, peer influence, and the anxiety of being misunderstood because their foundation is internal rather than external. Their sense of self does not depend on who is in the room. There is also a creative dimension that rarely gets acknowledged. Psychological research into creative output consistently shows that solitude is one of the most reliable conditions for original thought. When the mind is freed from the social performance of being around others, it moves differently. It makes unexpected connections. It follows ideas to their natural conclusions without interruption. The people who do their best thinking alone are not antisocial. They are protecting the conditions that make their mind work at its highest level. Here is the reframe. Choosing solitude is not running away from people. It is running toward yourself. It is the act of prioritizing the one relationship that will outlast every other one you will ever have, the relationship with your own mind. People who are genuinely comfortable alone are not waiting for life to begin when someone arrives. Their life is already full, already happening, already enough. The quiet is not empty. It is where they do their best living. In a world that mistakes noise for connection and busyness for meaning, choosing solitude takes a particular kind of inner strength. The kind that does not need to explain itself. If this felt less like a video and more like something you already knew but